Good day, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Today's video is on 10 interesting facts about Reginald Barclay from Star Trek, TNG, and Voyager. This character was really interesting and he had some phobias. However, he usually came through by the end of an episode. So, let's get into it. Number 1. During Barclay's attendance at Starfleet Academy, his reclusive tendencies escaped the attentions of neither his classmates nor his service record. Despite this, Barclay graduated and received a commendation by serving competently in Starfleet for many years. During his service aboard the USS Shovok, he earned satisfactory ratings, and when he transferred to the Enterprise D, the Shovok commanding officer, Captain Gleason, spoke highly of Barclay to his new ship's crew. Number 2. Upon his transfer to the Enterprise D in 2366, Barclay held the rank of Lieutenant Junior grade. Due to his nervousness and lack of confidence, many members of the Enterprise crew initially referred to him as Lieutenant Broccoli, a play on the name Barclay, coined by Wesley Crusher. He was initially disliked by members of the crew, not only due to the fact he seemed constantly nervous and on edge, but also because he was routinely late for duty, and often wound up on report for seemingly not performing to the best of his ability. As a result, he was the first member of the Enterprise crew to be given an unsatisfactory rating in his evaluation. Riker and LaForge attempted to get him transferred off the ship, not believing he was competent enough to serve on the Federation flagship, with Riker even suggesting that Captain Gleason had exaggerated his assessment of Barclay to hasten the departure of the troublesome officer. Captain Picard, however, refused to simply transfer him away from the ship, and it was because of Picard's support and Geordi LaForge's encouragement, at Picard's behest, that Barclay's confidence began to increase. Number 3. As time passed, Barclay slowly grew in confidence and became one of LaForge's best engineers. Following an encounter with an alien probe in 2367, Barclay's IQ rose somewhere between 1200 and 1450 as a result of a neurological enhancement he received from the probe. During the time he possessed this enhanced intellect, Barclay was more confident, outgoing, and sure of himself, even arguing grand unified theories with a holographic representation of Albert Einstein on the holodeck. Barclay was able to use the holodeck to integrate his mind into the ship's computer, effectively taking complete control. Unknown to Barclay, the Cytherans, the creators of the probe, set this in motion so that he would bring the Enterprise D to them, as this was their species' preferred method of investigating new races. All attempts to disconnect or dissuade him were unsuccessful, and he created a subspace distortion that brought the Enterprise D to the Silithrians. After this encounter, Barclay was returned to his previous self, but he did retain a bit of confidence and intelligence that the experience gave him. Number 4. Later that year, Barclay inadvertently released the holographic representation of Professor James Moriarty from his confines in the computer memory core of the Enterprise D while conducting a diagnosis of the failure of the holodeck matrix diodes, which turned out to be caused by Moriarty himself. Upon activation, Moriarty briefly explained his history to Barclay, and, after realizing he's been there for 4 years has passed, deduced that Captain Picard had merely promised to research a way for him to live in the real world in order to get him to release the hostage he had taken at the time. Barclay defended Picard, saying the captain would never go back on his word, and promised to report the incident to his superiors, which he did. Number 5. In 2375, Lieutenant Commander Worf and Chief O'Brien specifically mentioned that nobody could forget Barclay when remembering old friends on the Enterprise. O'Brien and Worf remembered him most for his extravagant Three Musketeers program they often invited the crew to join him in. Number 6. Sometime prior to 2371, Barclay transferred to Jupiter Station and worked as part of the original holo engineering team in Dr. Louis Zimmerman's holographic laboratory, assigned to test the emergency medical hologram's interpersonal skills. Sometime between 2371 and 2376, Barclay was promoted from lieutenant junior grade to lieutenant. Number 7. Barclay was assigned to the new USS Enterprise E before the Battle of Sector 001 in 2373. He traveled into the past with the rest of the ship's crew to the day before Earth's first contact with the Vulcans and met the noted inventor Dr. Zephram Cochrane. Barclay was thrilled at the opportunity to shake Cochrane's hand, so much so, in fact, that Lieutenant Commander Geordie LaForge found himself having to remind Barclay to calm down and continue his work, helping Cochrane repair the Phoenix. Barclay also obtained LaForge's approval and input on a makeshift component that Barclay and other engineers from the Enterprise E intended to use to replace the Phoenix's warp plasma conduit. Number 8. In 2374, Barclay was transferred to the Pathfinder project at Starfleet's Communications Research Center, endeavoring to return the starship USS Voyager to the Alpha Quadrant from the distant Delta Quadrant. As a result, Barclay relocated to Earth and kept an apartment in San Francisco. Barclay created a holographic recreation of the vessel and its crew to enable him to experiment with different solutions. Number 9. Later that year, Barclay, with the assistance of the USS Voyager EMH known as the Doctor, devised the idea of using the Midas array to direct a tachyon beam towards an approaching Class B inerrant pulsar, thus generating an artificial micro-wormhole. This wormhole could then be directed towards Voyager's likely locations and used to communicate with the ship. Unfortunately, Commander Pete Harkins turned down his idea as impractical. However, Barclay was unable to contain his enthusiasm during an inspection of the research facility by Admiral Paris. This prompted Harkins to send Barclay home for the rest of the day. Barclay disobeyed and instead returned to his simulation to refine his ideas. When Harkins later discovered him in the simulation, Barclay was suspended pending a psychological evaluation, as the commander believed Barclay had suffered a relapse of his holo addiction. Barclay was unable to accept this and appealed to Admiral Paris, then broke into the communications center. He attempted to go forward with his plan but was discovered. To prevent himself from being interrupted, Barclay activated the holographic recreation of Voyager, using the holographic crew to protect and assist him. Just as Harkins used a simulated warp core breach to end the program, Captain Catherine Janeway hailed the communications center from the Delta Quadrant, having received Barclay's message. With this, a bit brief, two-way communications with the ship, ship's logs, research data, and personal message for Tom Paris from his father, and instructions in order to improve the communication systems of Voyager were able to be transmitted, and Barclay's ideas were vindicated. The crew of Voyager later toasted their unmet hero who had established the link, honoring Barclay as an honorary member of the crew. Number 10. In 2378, Barclay was on duty at the communications center when long-range sensors detected a Borg transwarp conduit opening just outside the Sol system. He quickly reported this information to several visiting admirals. When a Borg sphere emerged from the transwarp conduit and exploded to reveal Voyager, Barclay was one of the first to welcome the starship's crew home. I really like this character, and even more so on Star Trek Voyager. If it wasn't for him, Voyager would not have gotten home. At least not in my opinion. He started his character with no self-esteem and no self-confidence, and ended up being a hero. So what did you think of Barclay? Did you like him on TNG or Voyager? Let me know in the comments. And consider subscribing to the channel and perhaps even becoming a member of the channel. Take care and have a great day.